Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. In the studio, we're going to be talking about a bid for Declan Rice and Anthony Martial up for sale from a good source. Lots to get into on the show today. Of course, we've got the Leeds game coming up tomorrow night. You should have seen the preview last night if you've not seen that. Good show. We spoke about Man City in that as well. Presser with Terry Ten Hag coming up at lunchtime as well. And we're live at 4 o'clock in the studio again. So loads to get involved with today, but we're going to hit it off straight away with two big stories. We're going to start off with this from Declan Rice, and I feel the need I like doing this accent anyway, but I feel the need to do this accent because it's where it came from. Slow Sports News, Jim Waite. Manchester United, Declan Rice bid, £100 million, yellow tie. This is where it came from. Mad story, whether it's true, I don't know, but it is coming in from Jim White on TalkSport, said yesterday that the price has been set for Declan Rice of £120 million and that Manchester United actually made a bid of £100 million last summer that got rejected. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? I tell you what I think about that is I don't want to say it's wrong, but it doesn't, to me, seem right that we did bid for Declan Rice £100 million last year. I just don't know when that would have happened, why we would have gone in that high, and why his price would now be £120 million. I don't believe Declan Rice actually has got that long left on his contract. I think he's got like maybe 2 years left on his contract. I think it's 2025. So why would you be paying £120 million for him? And why would West Ham reject £100 million for him last year? West Ham seem to have very, very odd, ideas about what Declan Rice is worth. Andre says it was probably before Casemiro. £120 million question mark, says Lutty. I'd take Casemiro any day, says Kyle. Well, we know the market for midfielders is going to be inflated in the summer. We saw Enzo Fernandez go for €120 million. That was his release clause. We know Jude Bellingham's going to go for big money. So West Ham are quite clearly going to cash in on a player that they've kept for 2 years who would like to have left. I think Declan Rice likes being at West Ham, but he's made no secret of the fact that he would love to go and play for a Champions League club and test himself. And I think he's been wanting to do that for the last 2 years. And I think what you've got here is a situation where the player probably has some sort of verbal agreement with West Ham that he can leave this summer. But West Ham will want to get the biggest price they can get. They see a market in the midfield market this summer, and they're going to push the envelope because a lot of people want midfielders. Arsenal wants a midfielder. Chelsea may still want another midfielder. Manchester United wants a midfielder. Liverpool need a midfielder. That's just in the Premier League. Man City may want a midfielder. So, and as I say, that's just the Premier League. What about the Real Madrids? What about the Barcelonas? What about the Bayern Munichs? What about the PSGs? So there's a huge market there. And as we know, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Casemiro would be three Premier League ones. Well, not Premier League for Bellingham, but you know what I mean. Hi, Mark. If both were available, would you prefer Rice or Bellingham? And can you please shout out my Man United group, says Tyler. There we go, Tyler. I would prefer Bellingham over Declan Rice because I think what we're looking for is somebody to go next to Casemiro who can box-to-box it, whereas I think Declan Rice can do that, but basically people see Declan Rice as a CDM. Would you play with two CDMs? Casemiro and Declan Rice? I think that would upset the balance of what Ten Hag is trying to do. I do think Declan Rice is capable of playing in that stadium behind me. I do. I think he's a good player. I've always said that, and I do like it. I just never felt that he'd be a Man United player. In some ways, I'd put him above Harry Kane. I know Harry Kane doesn't play centre midfield. I do like Harry Kane, but I just feel that Harry Kane age profile wouldn't fit Manchester United. But I agree with what Sean Walker says. It's the price for me. That is exactly the issue here. The issue here is the price for Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice is worth no more than 80 million. And even then, some people, what price point would you say? Even then, at 80 million, I would go, you're pushing it a little bit. But the reason I would say 80 million is because, look, to be fair, Harry Maguire went for £80 million, and that'll be 4 years ago this summer. He was overinflated, but I think £80 million for Declan Rice is probably where anything above that I start to get concerned. And £120 million, definitely. The ceiling for Rice is, when it comes to price, is 90 million, no more than that. And if United are going to wander into the 100 million, 120 million, you know exactly what will happen. I like Rice. I like him as a player. I could see him doing well at Manchester United. I think some people don't think he's as good as he is. when you watch him play, he's actually very consistent and he does a very, very good job. But if you pay £100 million for a player like that, you bring him to Man United, it's the Antony effect times 10. It will be the scrutiny of, is he good enough to play for Manchester United and be a £100 million player? And it could go the Jack Grealish way, where you see glimpses, but they're never really in the team that much. Or they could flop completely, or he could revel in it. But there is an element of risk. And of course, the big countenance to that is that if you do not spend £100 million on Declan Rice and you spend that money on Casido, you've still got money in your pocket. If you spend it on somebody from Europe, you've still got money in your pocket. If you spend it on De Jong, you've still got money in your pocket. And if you spend 20 million more, you've got Jude Bellingham. So the price is prohibitive, definitely. But look, as I say, if you're joining in a little bit late, this is breaking news from yesterday. I nearly called him Sir Jim White. Sir Jim White, I don't want it. I'm Scottish, I don't want it. Maybe he does, I don't know. I'm getting mixed up with Sir Jim Radcliffe. Robert McCormack says, I like Foster's Teddy Kane comparison, player of the year at 34, says Robert McCormack. So I think that it came in from Jim White, that Manchester United had made a bid for Declan Rice 100 million last year, and that his price tag this summer will be 100 million. Bellingham all the way, says Naz, he'd be perfect for us. Before we talk about this Martial story, I just want to say as well that do we think that apparently there's something wrong with the volume? If anyone can check that out, we're low on volume. Loads of people in the chat are saying that we're low on volume, so I don't know what's going on here. Rice is 65 million. I'd only spend 100 on Bellingham. If you got Rice for 70, secured Sabitzer for 30, that's good business, says Mike. Did we bid for Declan Rice last summer was something I wanted to talk about. Some people are saying it's fine, so we'll carry on. I think that when it comes to whether we bid for Declan Rice last summer, it seems odd that we'd spend £100 million on Declan Rice or bid £100 million on Declan Rice, but I don't think anybody can say it didn't happen. So I'm not going to throw Jim White under the bus here with his Slow Sports News. He could be correct. Declan Rice, £100 million bid last summer. Manchester United, who knows? But I think it would be odd, but there was that 2-week gap in August where we went from Rabiot and Arnautovic to Antony and Casemiro, and we spent a combined 150 million quid. Kane could become the next Van Nistelrooy at Man United, says Perth. No, he couldn't. And I'm not even going to entertain that nonsense. And rubbish. Absolutely terrible opinion. How can he become the next Van Nistelrooy? I'm entertaining it now. How can he become the next Van Nistelrooy when we bought Van Nistelrooy in his early 20s? And I think Van Nistelrooy was 24 when we bought him, actually. Harry Kane would be 30. This is my thing. I want the next Van Nistelrooy at Man United. I don't want a 30-year-old who's coming towards the end of his career. I don't believe what Ben Foster said yesterday, that Harry Kane will be 4 years scoring loads and loads of goals. I don't. We'll see. We'll see, because he will play for the next 4 years. Let's see how many goals he's scoring at 34 and let's see how many games he's playing. But yeah, there was that window at the end of August where we went and spent big money on Antony, on Casido. We did inquire about João Felix, so it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that we rang West Ham up and said, we'll give you £100 million for Declan Rice. What I would say is if we did do that, and it's a big if we did do that, it's another indicator of how badly this club is run above the manager in relation to director of football, CEO, recruitment. Because if we went and bid £100 million for Declan Rice, we're very lucky that West Ham rejected it and we ended up getting Casemiro for 60. That would have been a ridiculous decision to do, deal to do in hindsight, because Casemiro costs £40 million less and he's way better. And I suppose that's what my problem is about the summer, because, you know, you could spend £100 million on Declan Rice, but you could get Casido for 60. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with it. It's an interesting story. In summary, I like him. I think he's a good player, but I wouldn't spend that much money on him. Mark, is it something to consider that if we bought Osimhen, we would have to lose him to the African nations, says Knight. Yeah, I mean, we as a club haven't really been impacted by that. Eric Bailly springs to mind. Obviously, there's been others. But if you look at Liverpool, they've had that quite regularly with Mane and Salah, and they've still won things. So that's just about squad depth, because the AFCON, you probably miss 4 or 5 games in January if if you're unlucky and the player who's playing for their country is lucky. You should be able to get that's like somebody being out with a groin strain. You should be able to. That's the whole thing that Ten Hag's trying to build. When he puts his best 11 out, I think we're title contenders. When he has to rotate, I think that's why we're not title contenders for me at the moment. So we need to build a situation whereby if you buy Osimhen, you've got a counterbalance to that anyway. Interesting you mentioned that. That's a very, very important point. I missed this yesterday. I had a busy day yesterday and a lot going on with lots of different things. The Man City story as well. Obviously, the anniversary of the Busby Babes. And, I completely missed this story, which had been mentioned over the weekend, and we'd spoken about it over the weekend, but the Manchester Evening News actually sourcing the story as their story as well, so potentially from different sources. Now, if you remember over the weekend, we spoke about how Ten Hag is already drawing up a list of players that he'd be content to sell in the summer, and we mentioned Martial, we mentioned Tellez, we mentioned McTominay, we mentioned Maguire, we mentioned Donny van der Beek. That was a separate story. Yesterday, and director says, no, I feel like this as well. Yesterday morning, a story came out from the Manchester Evening News saying that the Manchester Evening News understands that Tellez, Martial and Maguire are players that are available for sale in the summer, and that the decision on Martial had been made before this latest injury. That's interesting because it's the second well-sourced story around the same players that we've had in a few days. I don't think it's controversial to say that Harry Maguire is up for sale in the summer anymore. And I don't think it's controversial for Harry Maguire to be thinking about leaving Manchester United in the summer because he's just not playing. He's waiting on an injury. He's not like a Fred or a Malacia or a Wan-Bissaka who conceivably are playing quite regularly, and although they might not be in the first team, they're knocking on the door and they could get in the first team. I think for people like Maguire, they're not knocking on the first team door. They're not threatening Martinez or Varane. They are very much third, fourth, maybe fifth choice centre-back, depending on what your feelings are. And he wants to be playing because he wants to play for England. So Maguire's future from his side should be looking at options already. That's not to say he hasn't got a future at United. If we got an injury crisis, he could come in and play well. He could be lifting trophies this season. But logically, if everybody stays fit, he is not playing games. So him looking for options is probably correct. The fact that Man United are looking to move him on, or at least consider it, makes sense as well. Tellez makes sense. McTominay makes sense for the same reasons as Maguire. But Anthony Martial is a controversial one. And again, it's referenced in this article from the Manchester Evening News that they understand that Manchester United and Anthony Martial, Man United are preparing or open to selling him in the summer. I mean, it's multi-layered this, because my reaction is, what a shame. The fact that we're looking to sell him can only be based on injury. And if you're looking to sell a player on injury, how easy is an injury player to sell? Martial's on 200 grand a week. I think he's got 2 years left on his contract. And who would want to buy a player and give them 200 grand a week who is injury prone? So to me, it doesn't make any sense. But obviously, it's the second time this has been mentioned now. I think there's a raft of people in the chat that would say, I want to sell Anthony Martial. It's just not working out. If anything, Osimhen will be our next Van Nistelrooy, says Daniel Kirk. Absolutely spot on. So, yeah, look, I find it interesting that Manchester United would be looking to sell Anthony Martial in the summer. And whilst I can't dismiss it, because it's clearly coming in from sources that have been good, then ultimately I feel that it's a tough one to get your head around, because how would you make that happen? Joshua Bowers says, sorry if you've discussed it, but if Liverpool miss out on Europe and City's cloud hanging over them, I think we'd be looking at ourselves in the conversation for Bellingham. I'll talk about that in a minute. And Shay says, going to be sad if Martial goes, big man Tony. Well, it's very well known that Erik Ten Hag is a massive fan of Anthony Martial. And it's very well known that Ten Hag is a big fan of what Martial brings to the team. Therefore, he fits the system that Ten Hag wants. And he would clearly prefer to be playing Martial between now and May over Weghorst. So why would he be up for sale in the summer? And I think the only logical reason is because you can't rely on him. He's never fit. So if we are looking to sell Martial in the summer, it will be based on fitness. Well, I think we're going to, as I say, I think we're going to struggle. If that's the reason we're looking to sell him, I don't think it's going to be successful, because I can't think of a club that's going to go, you're selling him because he's never fit. Here's 30 million and you can have 200 grand a week. I can't see it. I can't see that happening. So I understand it with Maguire, I understand it with Tellez, I understand it with Bailly, I understand it with McTominay, but I cannot understand it with Maguire. There might be a desire to move a player on because they can't play him every week, but how you'd actually make that happen, I can't think of a club that would take him. We might loan him out again. I mean, look, Wrexham might buy him, says Dennett. Yeah, Wrexham may be very, very good. But I think that when it comes down to it, I can't think of a club that would take Anthony Martial. When we tried to loan him, Sevilla took him, and we still had to pay half of his wage. So, look, people might be quite pleased about the news that Manchester United are considering or looking to sell Anthony Martial in the summer. I don't think it's going to be that easy of an issue to resolve. I think with Maguire and McTominay and the others, you can. But with Martial, you're selling him because of injury. I think there might be a more look, if it gets to it, there might be a more harsh way of dealing with this, and that's paying his contract up. But we're not quite at that yet. But I have to concede that 5 injuries already, and we've still got 4 months left. How many more injuries is he going to have? How many more games is he going to miss? You know, he played half an hour against Forest. He's injured again. There is a big issue there that needs to be solved, and it'd be very interesting to see how we deal with it in the summer. Going back to what Joshua said about Jude Bellingham, Manchester United in the Jude Bellingham race. I personally have never felt that we're in the Jude Bellingham race. Yes, that's a little bit from conversations, but it's also a bit on a hunch as well. It always feels like there's a lot of work, and in the industry, you get told in relation to Bellingham, there's a lot of work going into the Bellingham deal. Dortmund know he's going to go, and Dortmund are open to that. They know they're going to make a lot of money, and therefore the Real Madrids, the Liverpools are putting the work in around that deal. And I always lose the, Angelo says 19, 20, Martial, 23 goals and 12 assists. We want this. Says, yeah, get him on the pitch, he'll deliver. But if you can't get on the pitch, you can't deliver. When we nearly bought Griezmann all those years ago, we'd been working on that deal since November. So you can work on transfers more, longer than people think. I think some people think you pick the phone up on June the 10th and you start negotiating. Transfers can be lined. I mean, Casido to Arsenal could be lined up already. That could be, pretty much done in the summer, and no one else will get a sniff. Who knows? So the issue with Bellingham is how advanced the conversations are with the clubs that are working on that deal. Because when it comes to Osimhen, there is no work being done, because Osimhen is at Napoli, and Napoli are not entertaining any conversations. They're about to win Serie A. They're a good shout for the Champions League. They probably don't want to sell him anyway, so they won't negotiate. They won't talk. There's no conversations. But with somebody like Jude Bellingham, there are conversations to be had. And can Man United jump on that conversation now? Mark, if Rice is 120 million, then let's sell our beloved Fred for 100 million and buy Rice. What about West Ham? What about that? Well, if West Ham like Scott McTominay, how's about they value Declan Rice at 120 million, and then we give them 50 for Rice and McTominay, and we value McTominay at 70 million. Scooby-Doo. And David Moyes loves McTominay. Scooby-Doo. So yeah, we could do that. But no, I still don't think Bellingham's possible for Manchester United, because we can't be negotiating for him, and we can't negotiate for Bellingham until we've been bought, and we've not been bought. So I think what Joshua said about Bellingham is absolutely spot on. If Liverpool are not in the Champions League and Chelsea are not in the Champions League, then we've got a great chance of signing Jude Bellingham in the summer, because we are, with Arsenal, the up-and-coming clubs in the Premier League. If Man City are going to fall off because of what happened yesterday, Chelsea are not in the Champions League, Liverpool are not in the Champions League, that leaves us and Arsenal as the brightest prospects in the Premier League. Well, Arsenal may not have the money to spend £120 million on Bellingham, so therefore we become the front runners from the Premier League. And obviously Jude Bellingham's English, so he might want to play in the Premier League more than he does want to play for La Liga in Real Madrid, because the Premier League is the best league in the world. So in theory, we should be front runners for Jude Bellingham. The problem is people are negotiating and working on that deal now and have been for a while. We can't work on that deal because how are you going to work on it? Do you want me to ring him up and say, Jude, I think we will have new owners by May and we'll be able to afford you. Hold your horses and wait for us. Because it may as well be me over John Murta and Richard Arnold, because they might not have a job. Some would say hopefully they won't have a job, but we certainly will have new owners by then. So we can't negotiate for these deals because we're not in a position to. We've got to wait till the summer. We can do what we did with Akanji and a couple of other players. We spoke to Akanji in February last year and said, we're interested in you, and that was on the recommendation of Rangnick. But we could never commit to it because they were like, it depends who the next manager is and what he wants. And obviously Ten Hag didn't want it. So we can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about the mic volume either, Lethal, because I'm live and some people say it's fine and some people say it's low. So there's nothing I can do, I'm afraid. Yeah, so look, I personally would say I don't think that Jude Bellingham is a likely deal for Manchester United. Having said that, you never know. And look, we're still all hoping to see this week Manchester United start to progress finally the sale of the football club. What midfield do you think we'll go for in the summer, says Raj? I actually would like us to go for Casido, but I think that he may well be sort of wrapped up to Arsenal already and they're just going to wait till the summer. Bellingham, I think, is very difficult to do. Enzo Fernandez is already gone. So therefore, I probably would step myself back into the Frenkie de Jong argument and the Jude Bellingham. No, not Jude Bellingham. Declan Rice or Frenkie de Jong are probably the two most likely. In my opinion at the moment, I think they're probably the two most likely. Frenkie de Jong is interesting. He's having a fantastic season at Barcelona. And I feel that would be, you know, the perfect signing to stick next. I think Casemiro and Frenkie de Jong would make us very serious title contenders next season with a couple of other signings. But it's like Makish says, there's no chance with Frenkie de Jong because he doesn't want to leave. I don't know where. The only thing about Frenkie de Jong is that there must have been something, because we spent all summer trying to get him, but he's always said, I don't want to leave. So I don't know why we spent all that time on him. And I don't know why we're still spending all this time on him, because these, you know, journalists that are close to Man United, they never stop talking about Frenkie de Jong, even this summer. So it's still something that United want to do, but you're always left there. It's like the guy that keeps asking his dream to marry him, and they keep saying no. Well, one day you will. It feels a little bit like that with de Jong. So I would say at this moment in time, Bellingham we can't do. Casido, I think, will go to Arsenal. Enzo Fernandez is gone, so that leaves Rice, de Jong, or an unknown, which might be more exciting. It might be also exciting. Not interested in what he's got to say. Okay. This is well. Here we go. This is the third update on Anthony Martial now. This is breaking. I've not seen this. Erik ten Hag appreciates Anthony Martial as a player, but as Man United will go for a new striker, there's a chance they will put Anthony on the market in the summer. And that's from Fabrizio Romano this morning. So again, there's clearly something out there about Martial and a sale, but underlying that is the fact that he can't stay fit. And that, to me, will always be the big thing. He cannot stay fit. But, yeah, I can't really deny the fact that there's good sources talking about Anthony Martial leaving the club in the summer. I've not heard of us appealing against the red card, Pranav. 100% we should have appealed against the red card, but I think Casemiro has appealed his motion fix. I've not seen this anywhere. Let me have a quick look. I mean, look, we should have appealed it. I just think it'll be a waste of time to do it. Now, let's have a quick look. 100% we should have appealed, but can understand why we haven't, says Mal Doherty. I can't see that we've appealed it anywhere. I can't see that anywhere. Yeah, like I say, we should have appealed it, but I think the obvious... I mean, look, I don't know whether you saw the show last night, but apparently, well, Sky Sports every Monday get an ex-referee on who I think works for the Referees Association, Dermot Gallagher, and he came on. He comes on every Monday morning and talks about the refereeing decisions. Apparently, he said it was a red card and the AU's wasn't. I mean, that's what you're up against. If all Man United need to do is listen to that and go, we're wasting our time. It's an injustice, but we're wasting our time, because it's the old jobs for the boys again, isn't it? It's protect incompetence. It's the politician approach. You know, we live in the UK, and well, we do. And that's what happens, you know, an MP does something wrong and everyone just covers up for them. And that's exactly what happens in this situation, because I don't care whether you think it's a red card for Casemiro. If it's a red card for Casemiro, it's 100% a red card for AU. Great show again, buddy. Lots to talk about again. Yeah, of course, we've got Eric Ten Hag's press conference coming up as well. I think it's at 12:30 at Leeds United tomorrow night as well. 4 o'clock show today. I think we've got Ricky on in the studio today as well. Aidan says, apparently we have appealed Casemiro red card. Look at the early team news on the website or app. Okay. I don't mind if we do appeal it. I hope we do appeal it, but I'd understand if we didn't. Robert McCormack says, I don't get why people would be unhappy for Kane to drop deep. He would feel the non-creative wingers and bag a load himself. Perfect signing for me. The problem with Harry Kane at Man United dropping deep, Robert, for me, is that at Spurs, they don't play with a number 10. So you see Harry Kane dropping next to Højbjerg and Bentancur with the wingers going, and it works really, really well because he's got a massive 20 metres to drop into where he's not getting in anyone's way. If the striker drops at Manchester United as much as Harry Kane does, he is going to be standing on Bruno Fernandes's toes, and that sort of diminishes what Bruno wants and what Bruno is there for. Harry Kane, if he came to Manchester United, would have to be going as a striker. And it might be like what Ben Foster said yesterday, that, you know, in his latter years, in his 30s, does he need to be running around as much? Maybe that would elongate his career by him being told just to stay in and around the box. But as we know, a big part of Harry Kane's last 2 or 3 years has been the fact that he's a very good sort of number 10 in many ways. He likes to drop. Bruno doesn't get many assists though, says Robert. But yeah, no, that's not my point. My point is Harry Kane plays a lot of his game as a 10. What's the point in having a 10 and Harry Kane? It doesn't make any sense. You know, you're pissing in the same pond, so to speak. So I wouldn't be an advocate of that. I wouldn't be pro Harry Kane anyway, if I'm honest with you. I know Charlie is, I know Adam is, and I know a lot of you are. But for me, I do want the next Van Nistelrooy. I do want the next Andy Cole. I want the next striker that's going to be at the club for the next 4 or 5 years. And I really want a striker to develop. I want a younger striker to develop. I want an Osman who hasn't played in the Premier League and is still young and has a lot of potential and is already a good player. That's what I want. I don't really want a Kane or a Van Persie. Now, people will always use, wow, Harry Kane could be our Van Persie. Yes, he could. And it was great for a year, and then it didn't work. It was a 1-year thing. And I don't think we want a 1-year thing, because I don't think we're one player away off the title. He didn't say the other guy was not a red, said not everything can be looked at the same time. Don't think he passed judgment, says Glennie. But oh, thank you very much. But that's nonsense as well. If he did say that, he's still a prat, because if you can't look at everything... I mean, imagine if he did say that yesterday. Well, I can't look at the AU one because that wasn't looked at, and you can't look at everything at the same time. That's an admittance of incompetence then, because if you can't look at everything at the same time, why are you looking at some things? You know, the incident was Anthony and Schlupp. They got booked. Let's move on. If someone's grabbed someone here, maybe someone's grabbed somewhere else, I haven't got time to look at that. Let's look at it after the game. That's my whole point. Yeah, that is my point. Well made. Thank you. Well done. So, on the Casemiro red card, let me just... This is what it says on the Man United app, word for word. The rearranged game is set to be the first one missed by Casemiro if his 3-match suspension for the red card on Saturday is confirmed. That's from the United app on Casemiro red card. So maybe Man United are waiting to see if the FA are going to stand by it, because the FA don't need an appeal. they can look at it and go, it's not a red card themselves. I don't think they're going to back down on it, to be honest with you, because it's embarrassing for them, and why would they do that? I don't think they would. But yeah, to be honest with you, anybody who thinks that you can use the Van Persie example as an example to go and get Harry Kane. I've called him Harry Kane, Harry McCain, Roy Keane. What's next? As long as they don't call him Harry Maguire, I think you'll be happy. Harry Kane cannot be you can't use the Van Persie argument as Harry Kane for me, because Van Persie, we just lost the title to Aguero, the cheats, and we were literally one kick away from winning the league. So what Sir Alex did is he looked at it and went, why didn't we win the league? Goal difference. So he went and bought the Golden Boot winner from Arsenal, and then we won the league the next year. That's why he bought Van Persie. He was literally one thing to a team that had missed out on a title to a goal. We lost that title on a goal. So that's why we bought Van Persie. And it only worked for 1 year, because then Van Persie fell off and Sir Alex left. So if you buy Harry Kane on the Van Persie model, we're not one goal off winning the title. We're probably 4 or 5 players off winning the title. So we're still trying to... The reason I don't want Harry Kane is because I want to build a team, and I don't think Harry Kane is the right fit for that. I might be wrong, and you might be right. We'll have to wait and see. Anyhow, Eddie Howe, he's had a mention now. Anyhow, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Lots of content for you today on the channel, so get yourself subscribed, smash a like on the video. And as I said, we've got a live 4 o'clock show. We're live for the press conference, which I think will be just after 12:30. It's the normal time. Speak to you all later. Thanks for watching.